Hello guys, welcome to probability and statistics. Today we are going to do the second lecture on probability. So basically, if you recall, we studied two types of statistics. One was descriptive and one was inferential, right? In descriptive statistics, we dealt with the method for drawing conclusion about the population based on the information from the sample. This is what we said about inferential statistics. So whenever you are doing that, because in population is a bigger thing, sample is smaller thing, you are doing your stuff on sample and you are drawing conclusions about the population, so there can be mistakes, right? So there can be uncertainty. So uncertainty is inherent in this inferential statistics. So this science of uncertainty is basically called the probability theory. Okay, because in probability we are not certain about something, so there is some percentage of uncertainty. For example, there is a 70% chance of rain. Okay, so you switch your outdoor game to an indoor game. Let's say you planned an outdoor game tomorrow, but when you saw your weather forecast, it says that there is 70% chance of the rain. Still 30% chance that there is no rain, right? But you still say that okay, 70% is a little higher, so let's not spoil our game. Let's plan the game indoor. Okay, so that if there is a rain, we won't have any problems, right? So see, there is an uncertainty involved in this type of decision. Similarly, inventory manager of a high-end clothing line wonders that what are the chances that sales would exceed a certain level. So again, see, there are chances. So whenever there is a chances, there is an uncertainty. Similarly, what are the chances that Pakistan will win the next T20 World Cup? Or what are the chances that Oman will win the next GCC Soccer Cup? Hmm? Or the World Cup, as a matter of fact. While preparing for the exam, you would wonder that what are the chances. I would ask for the examples of probability, right? So this is again uncertainty. You are not sure whether in the exam there will be a probability question or not. It is the part of the syllabus, but there may or may not be a question in the exam, right? So there is uncertainty. So these are all examples which concerned with probability theory. So let's start with a very simple example of coin tossing, right? So we have a two-sided coin. All coins are two-sided, and if they are fair coins, fair means if they are not bent from one side, or one of the side has does not have a higher chances of coming from the other side, right? If let's say if the coin is curved, then it is not fair. The chances of the inside side has more chances to appear than the outer one, right? So if it is very straight, very unbalanced coin, then both have the equal chances of coming, head and tail. Okay, so there are two possible outcomes, head and tail, as we discussed in last lecture as well. If we roll a die, you know that all possible outcomes are from 1 to 6. Okay, and again, if the die is fair, right, then all six faces have equal chances of coming up. All right, some vocabulary which we need to understand before going to the probability theory. What is an experiment? An experiment, we mean an action whose outcomes cannot be predicted with certainty. So this is not a scientific experiment. You can call it random experiment, but whenever in probability theory, if I don't say random, if I say experiment, it automatically means we are concerned with random experiment whose outcomes cannot be predicted. Okay. For example, toss of a coin, throw of a die, polling in a vote, inspecting an assembly line, counting arrivals at emergency room. You are not sure how many patients will come in an emergency room in a particular period of time, right? So you cannot predict how many patients will come over there. What is an event? An event is a collection of one or more possible outcomes. Okay, so you know that there are possible outcomes of an experiment. So if I collect just one or more than one outcomes, it is an event. Okay, so for example, if I toss a coin, if I only collect head in my set, it is an event. If I collect tail, this is also an event. If I collect both of them, that is also an event. Okay, if I throw a die, all possible outcomes are from 1 to 6. But if I collect any number, let's say 1, 2, this is an event, this is another event, this is another event. Okay, so we can say that this is an event that an odd number appears. You see, 1, 3, 5 is an odd number. So events can be described in words as well. Okay, and they will have this kind of set description as well. Sample space, we discussed it in the last lecture as well. Event is a collection of one or more outcomes, but a sample space is a collection of all possible outcomes. You remember, this is what we studied in last lecture. So set of all possible outcomes of a random experiment is called a sample space, and we represent it by S. Last time we were writing it as S for sample space, but now in probability theory we will just write capital S for the sample space. Okay. Examples: if I toss a coin, then the sample space is all possible outcomes, head and tail. If I roll a die, set of all possible outcomes from 1 to 6. Deck of playing cards, set of all 52 playing cards is my sample space. Okay. So now what is the probability? Probability is the chance that something will happen. Okay. For example, we said there is a 70% chance of the rain tomorrow, right? That is the probability of rain. What is the probability of not rain? 30%, right? The total has to be 1. 100% will be the total probability. A probability is a numerical measure. It's a numerical value of the likelihood of an event. Likelihood of an event means what is the likelihood that the event will occur, event will happen, and we give a numerical value to that. Okay, so probability are expressed as fractions, for example 1 by 6, 1 by 2, 8 by 9, etc., or as fractions, as decimals. You can put them as decimals as well. If let's say there is a 50% chance of something, I can say that the probability is 1 by 2, or so the probability is either 1 by 2, or we can say that it's zero point 0.5, right? So both of them. Probability always lie between 0 and 1. You see, if something is not happening, the probability will be 0. If there is no chances of the rain tomorrow, I can say that there is 0 chances. So probability is 0. If there are 100% chance of the rain, I will say that it is 1. Probability is 1. 100% means 100 divided by 100, which is 1. So the maximum probability can be 1. So we call it certain event. It's definitely happen when the probability is 100. Okay. The probability of an event that cannot occur is 0, and the probability of an event that is certain to occur, 100% chances, so the probability is 1. All other events will have probability between 0 and 1. So sometimes what happens, students make mistake and they get negative probability, and they are not worried about that. They are happy that we did it correctly. Negative probability, it's not possible. Similarly, sometimes you do some mistake and get the probability more than 1, and you are happy that you did question correctly, right? So these are the things where you can check your answer, that how come I got the probability more than 1 or a negative probability. So you can go back and check your solutions. All right. So these are the possible values: impossible event, or we say that null event. Okay, and certain event will have probability 1, all other will be in. But if it's exactly between, we say that it's a 50-50 chance, half the chance of occurring. If something is below 0.25, here we say that it's very unlikely to happen because the probability of occurring is very small. If it is bigger than 0.75, we say that it is likely to happen. Why? Because the probability is very high. The probability of 80% chance of the rain, we say that it's likely to be rain tomorrow because the chances are very high. Okay, so these are the names which are related to the probability: likely to happen, unlikely to happen, or 50-50 chances if you are close to 0.5. So there are three approaches to the probability. One is classical approach, One is relative frequency approach and one is subjective approach. Okay, we will go through this one by one. So first of all, what is classical approach? Classical approach defines the probability of an event as number of outcomes when an event occurs and divided by the total number of outcomes. Most of the times we follow this approach to find the probability of any event. Okay, so probability of an event E, so probability of an event E is represented as probability of E, P of E, like we write function of x, f of x, right? So P for probability as a function of an event, and it gives you a numerical value. Okay, so whenever we write a probability, so it's probability a function that acts on a set, because event is always a set, right? And it gives you a number, real number between 0 and 1, both inclusive. It can be 0, it can be 1 as well. So it is a function which maps sets into the values between 0 and 1. Okay, any number between 0 and 1. So it's a function kind of a thing. So this is a machine which is a probability. You give him some input as a event E, which is a set, of course, a subset of a sample space, and a function will give you a number between 0 and 1. Okay, it will give you a real number as an output between 0 and 1, any number, and it has to be unique. For one event it will not give you 2. That's why it is a function. You know that function gives you a unique output for each input. So each E will get a numerical value. Probability will not refuse any event. Okay, it will give you answer for every event, a unique answer. So that's why we mathematically this P is exactly defines a function. Okay, last time in the exams, take home exam, I saw many strange notations for the probability. It was like people don't know anything about the probability and they were just copying from somewhere. It was very heartbreaking for me. So kindly go through the videos and try to learn these things. If you need these things later on, you should not have a problem. And believe me, you will need these things later on. People who are doing the projects in engineering, ask them. Many times they need to use the probabilities and these type of things. So for classical approach, let me go through some examples. What is the probability of getting a head on one toss of a coin? You know that when we toss a coin, what is your sample space? If you toss a coin, your sample space is head or tail, right? It will be head or tail. So how many possibilities are there? Only 2. So 2 is the total number of outcomes, right? Now I am interested in probability of head. So how many if outcomes favorable to head? Only one outcome. Only this outcome is favorable to head. This is not favorable to head, it's tail, right? So 1 is a number of outcomes when heads come up, or you can say that these are the number of outcomes favorable to head, only 1, and 2 are the outcomes, total number of outcomes when we toss one coin, right? So I got 1 by 2, exactly half the probability. And this common sense also says that, right? Because we are tossing a coin, it's a balanced coin, fair coin, both sides are equally likely to happen, right? So there are 50-50 chances for both of them, head or tail. So probability is 1 by 2 and 1 by 2. Even if I find the probability of tail, it will be 1 by 2. If I ask you what is the probability of tail, that is also 1 by 2. And there is no other possibilities, only 2 possibilities. So if I add these 2 probabilities, it will be 1. So sum of all probabilities is always 1, remember. Okay, sum of all probabilities is always 1. For tossing, rolling of a one die, if I roll one die, there are 6 outcomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He said, what is the probability of getting a 5? How many favors 5? Only 1, right? Only 5 favors 5. No other outcome will favor 5. So number of outcomes of one roll of a die that will produce a 5 is 1 only. That's it. And how many total number of outcomes? 6. Right? So 1 by 6. You don't have to write 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. You can directly write 1 by 6. This is first time I'm doing this example. That's why I wrote all these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one chance for everyone. So there are 6 chances total. So 1 by 6 is the probability. And as a matter of fact, not just getting 5, getting anything is 1 by 6. If I want to find the probability of getting a 3, it is 1 by 6. So all of them, probability of 1 is 1 by 6, probability of 2 is 1 by 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, all have probability 1 by 6. Now if you add all of them, you are adding 1 by 6 6 times. So it will be 6 by 6, which is 1. So see, sum of all probabilities is again 1. Okay. But these are the probabilities when a fair die is rolled or a fair coin is tossed. If they are not balanced, they are unfair, then I cannot say this is the probability, because all faces will not have equal probabilities. Here all faces have equal probabilities. That's why the probabilities are equal. When we say that the events are equally likely, what does it mean? It means they have equal probability. 1 by 6, 1 by 6, 1 by 6, 1 by 6, right? So they all have same probability, so it's equally likely. Let's say if my one face is little rolled, right? You made it little fine, right? And make it little curved as one face. Then the face right opposite of that will never occur. Okay? Right opposite to that face which you have made a curved one, the opposite to that will never occur. Why? Because the die will never stand on that face. Because it is rolled, it will always fall on the other sides. Okay, so this is not a fair dice. Then I cannot say that the probabilities are 1 by 6, 1 by 6. Probabilities will be disturbed. Okay, so a fair die or a fair coin is very important when you are saying that the probabilities are 1 by 6 or 1 by 2. What is a relative frequency approach? Relative frequency approach is something that we did in frequency distribution. In second lecture of our course, I went through frequency distribution, and after getting frequency distribution, we divided frequencies by the total frequency to get the relative frequency. Relative frequency is also treated as the probability. Okay, for example, if I toss a coin 100 times, and there are 53 occasions I got head and 47 times I got tails. Okay, then the relative frequency approach says that the probability of head is 53 divided by 100, because 53 times head, so that is the frequency of head. And what is the total frequency? 100, because I rolled it 100 times. So 53 divided by 100 is the relative frequency of the head, which is not exactly 1 by 2. It's little more than 1 by 2 now. But it is relative frequency approach. So in relative frequency approach, we have to toss a coin a big number of times. So 100 is not treated as a big number. Maybe if I toss it 1,000 times or 10,000 times, then exactly half of them will be heads and exactly half of them will be tails, and probability will be almost 1 by 2. Okay, relative frequency approach is also good when I repeat the experiment a huge number of times, a very large number of times. Okay, so practically it's not a very good approach, because tossing a coin 1,000 times is not a very practical thing, right? You will sit all day and keep tossing the coin. That's not very practical. Okay, so but sometimes we may need it. So let us ask ourselves some complex questions. For example, what is the probability that I will live to be 85? Very difficult question. Who knows that you will get to the age of 85 or not? Right? Difficult question. What is the probability that I will blow one of the stereo speakers if I turn my 200-watt amplifier at a full volume? Sometimes when you turn the volume at full, some of the speakers just blow out, right? So again, no one knows. Probability of a new paper plant along a river will cause substantial fish kill. Let's say if you install a paper plant along a river, then of course from that factory, from that plant, lot of garbage will be going into the river, and lot of fish will get killed as a result of that, right? But how many, I don't know. Okay, so that's again, so this is basic, these are the answers. Unless you go to 85, no one can answer, right? Unless you observe how many fish got killed when I operated that plant, no one knows, right? But based on some maybe past experiences, we may answer these type of things. Okay, so relative frequency approach defines the probability as either the observed relative frequency, actually you perform that and see how many times you got heads and how many times you got tail, right? And in a very large number of trials, this is a condition. Second is the proportion of the times that an even occur in the long run when the conditions were stable. So basically, if you want to see in Oman, let's say how many people got to the age of 85, so maybe you have to study last 50 years. Let's see in last 50 years how many people got to the age of 85. Count them, okay? And from there you will get exact proportion of the people who got to the age of 45. You can say that, okay, this is the probability, right? But you see 50 years, you are observing something for 50 years. It's a huge number of experiment, right? It's a large experiment. So probability will be the total number of experiments and number of times the event occurs. Okay, as I gave you the example of head in 100 trials. So let's say I did 100 experiments, so total number are hundreds, and I said 53 times there was a head. So 53 by 100 will be the probability if I use relative frequency approach. And I know that this is not accurate. It's close to 0.5, so we may accept it as well. Okay, but if I increase the number of, let's say if I increase 1000 times, maybe 510 will be heads. Now you see it's close to 0.5, right? First it was 0.53, now it is 0.51. All right, so as you increase the number of experiments, you will definitely go towards 1 by 2. Okay, so here is that example exactly. You see, if I do less experiments, let's say if I toss a coin for these many times, you see the probability is close to 0.4, right? So it's jumping up and down, jumping up and down, jumping up and down. There are oscillations. But as I increase number of experiments to a very large number, now you see exactly in the middle, exactly at 0.5 my probability, right? So this is basically a condition that we have to repeat the experiment a large number of times, which is not a very practical approach. Okay, but if in the question they say use relative frequency approach to give me the probability, you can give them the probability. It may not be 0.5, no problem. It may be 0.4999 or 0.5111, no problem. You can give them the probability. Then what is the subjective approach? In a subjective approach, we define the probability as the degree of belief that we hold in the occurrence of the event. Okay, it depends on my belief. For example, what is the probability that you drop this course? Now see, only you know that what is the probability you drop the course before going to the finals. Maybe your assignment, your quiz, your midterm was not very good, and you decided that I may not end up getting a good grade here, so instead of completing this course, let me withdraw it. Okay, so it's only depend on you. Is you are the one who can tell. Okay, so these are some examples here. NASA successfully land a man on the Mars, right? Your friend says yes when you ask him to arrange a party. Of course, it's a very subjective question. It depends on your friend's mood or how much money he got right now, right? He can say yes or no. The day of judgment will occur in next 50 years, Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? It comes in next 50 years, who knows? Maybe based on some um, hadith or maybe some knowledge which we already know through the hadith, we may say that okay, there are not very less chance that the day of judgment will come in next 50 years, but still it is a subjective approach, right? A person who is not Muslim, he may not believe you, right? So let's introduce more terminologies. Mutually exclusive events. What are mutually exclusive? Mutually exclusive events are those who cannot occur together. For example, if I roll a die, even and odd numbers are mutually exclusive. You see, if even comes up, there will be no odd. If odd comes up, there will be no even. So odd and even are mutually exclusive events because they cannot occur together. So basically, in mathematical point of view, in set notation, if I take the intersection of mutually exclusive events, the intersection will be empty because empty set has probability 0. So here are the examples. For example, if I treat head as one event and tail as the other event, they cannot occur together. So head and tail are mutually exclusive events. Okay. Similarly, these are mutually exclusive events. Here, these three are mutually exclusive because they have no intersection, and these three are mutually exclusive because they have no intersection. Okay. Sorry, these are three events. These two events are mutually exclusive. 1, 2 and 3, 4 are mutually exclusive. 1, 5, 6 and 3 are mutually exclusive. And 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6 are mutually exclusive. So these two are separately mutually exclusive. Okay. These two separately are mutually exclusive. These two are separately are mutually exclusive. You see, these two are not mutually exclusive. If I take 3 with 1, 3, 5, they are not mutually exclusive. Why? Because if 3 occurs, then both these events have occurred. If 3 occurred, then this event has occurred, this event has also occurred. The intersection is not empty. Okay. Exhaustive events. Exhaustive events are those who must, if one of them must occur. Okay, if one of them must occur, we call them exhaustive events. For example, so in set notation, I can say that if I take the union, so in mutually exclusive events, if I take the intersection will be empty, right? And you remember we use phi, this notation phi for the empty set, right? Empty set, there is nothing in the set. uh, but here in exhaustive events, if I take the union, it is not about intersection. If I take the union of the events, and it gives me the whole sample space, total sample space. Okay. If the union of two sets or more than two sets give me the whole sample space, we call them exhaustive events, because whenever you do the experiment, your outcome will be in one of these events. Okay, whatever is, because see, this is the set of all possible outcomes. So if I pick any outcome from here, it will be either in A or in B. So it means one of them must occur, will definitely occur, right? For example, head and tail, either head will come or tail will come. So they are exhaustive events. And if you take the union, it will be the whole sample space. Okay. Similarly, these six are exhaustive events, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 5, 6 is another event. You take the union, it gives you the whole sample space. Okay, so one of them will definitely occur. So these are exhaustive events, or we call them collectively exhaustive events. So using any approach, subjective approach or relative frequency approach or classical approach. Classical approach is better, but we can do subjective approach as well. So can we determine the probabilities of the following events if we have the deck of 52 playing cards? So this is the deck of 52 playing cards. I hope you all remember it. What is the probability that a 7 occurs? If I draw one card, if I'm drawing one card out of these 52 playing cards, what is the probability that it is 7, right? So probability of 7 is how many 7s are there, you have to see, because I'm using classical approach. Total cards are 52. How many of them are favorable to 7? So this is your 7. So 7 are 1, 2, 3 and 4. There are 4 cards with 7 on it, right? So probability will be 4 by 52. If I simplify it, it will become 1 by 30, right? So I used classical approach here. So similarly, you can answer all these questions. And he said, what are the types of estimates you are using? So we are using the classical estimates for the probability here, because we are dividing the favorable to the total outcomes. Favorable divided by total is classical approach. For example, this question D, what is the probability a black 2 or a black 3? See, these are, there is or a black 2 or a black 3. So there are two black 2s, 1 and 2, and there are two black 3s. So either these two can come or these two can come. So there are 4 altogether. Okay, so again it will be 4 by 52. If I ask you, and if I write and here, the probability will be 0. If I ask you a black 2 and a black 3, I am drawing one card. How can a 2 and 3 both occur together? They cannot occur together. They are mutually exclusive, right? Either 2 will come or either a 3 will come. We cannot find both of them. So if I write and here, the probability will become 0, because they are mutually exclusive. They cannot occur together. And means occurring together. Okay. Another very nice things from the theory of sets is very helpful in probabilities. You must have seen this in different courses. I think in discrete mathematics we also do this Venn diagram, or in some, maybe in high school you must have seen it. Okay, Venn diagram, we make a rectangle, and this rectangle is a universal set. But here our universal set is a sample space. So my set S is my whole rectangle, and we define events as circular objects in it. So event has to be inside the sample space. I cannot define an event here because there is nothing outside the sample space. So this is wrong. I cannot define event has to be inside. You can define an event like this, okay? Not the outside portion, just the inside portion. This can be an event as well, okay? Another event can come here, or another event can come here. So there may be many events inside the sample space. Okay, so if I am saying this is my event E, then outside is the E complement. We call it not E. Either we call it E complement. Complement is when you subtract your event from the whole set. Either we write EC or we write not E. Of course, if something is outside, it is not in the E. So if my outcome is from the outside, I will say that even E does not happen. So this is the probability of not E. Okay. So probability of, let's say, tail in tossing of a coin can also be written as probability of not head. Okay. Not head. So I can say not head means probability of tail. Okay. So complement, because tail is the complement of heads. Now if you define two events who have some intersection here, this is the intersection, this blue one is the intersection, and we call it A and B. So remember, intersection is and. Whenever you have and, it is intersection. So probability of occurring A and B together, it means A and B. So sometimes we write and or intersection, they are the same thing. Okay, A or B means both of them. We are not taking the intersection, we are taking the union. Union means all of them, and this will be counted once only. We don't count this intersection twice, we count it once, right? So this is also A union B, this whole shaded area. This whole shaded area is A union B. So we use or for the union and for the intersection. You see, or for the union and for the intersection. Relationship among events. Not E means the event E does not occur. A and B means the event both A and B occur. A or B means either A or B or both occur. Why we are saying both occur? Because you see here, if my outcome is from here, then A will occur. If my outcome is from here, then B will occur. If my outcome is from here, then both have occurred. So union gives you either A or B or both. Alright, but there is an or in it. And in intersection, it is always both. And A and B means both occur together. Got it? So one in Venn diagram, how can we see mutually exclusive events? You see this one is mutually exclusive. Why? Because they have no intersection. These three are mutually exclusive because they all have no intersection. This is not mutually exclusive because there is an intersection, there is an intersection, there is an intersection. Even if two of them are intersecting, third one is not intersecting, we call A, B, C all not mutually exclusive. Yes, A and C are mutually exclusive, B and C are mutually exclusive, but all three are not mutually exclusive. Okay, so from Venn diagram, it's very easy to see things. That's the reason we take help from the Venn diagram. In probability question, try to get help from the Venn diagram. The chances of making mistakes will decrease enormously. Okay. A statistics class for engineers consists of 25 industrial, 10 mechanical and 10 electrical, 8 civil engineering students. So maybe you can change it with ICEN and computer engineers, right? Instead of electrical and industrial. Computer engineering is also electrical engineering, so we can use that. So, but there are 25, 10, 10 and 8 different engineering students. If a person is randomly selected by the instructor to answer a question, find the probability that the student chosen is an industrial engineering major, B, an civil engineering major or an electrical engineering major. Now you see for the first one, how many industrial engineering majors are there? There are 25 industrial engineering majors. And how many are the total? Total are 25 plus 10, 35 plus 10, 45 plus 8, 53. So total are 53. So I will divide 25 industrial engineering major divided by the total. So this is the probability of an industrial engineering major chosen at random. But now in the second part, he said civil engineering or an electrical engineering. So there are two ways. I can add both of them. Civil engineering are 8 and industrial engineering are 25. Right? Electrical, sorry, not industrial. Electrical are 10 and civil are 88. So means the total are 18. So if I divide 18 by 53, this will give me the probability of civil engineering or electrical engineering, U. So basically if you see here, I added probability of C separately and probability of electrical engineering separately. Okay, so why? Because this was 10 by 53 and this was 8 by 53. So see, we added them and got 18 by 53, right? So this is the sum. So it means for the union we can use sum of the probabilities. But here a thing to note is they are mutually exclusive events. There was no intersection. If a student is civil engineering major, he is not an electrical engineering major. So if I take the intersection of civil and electrical, it's empty set. So if you have this thing true, if they are mutually exclusive events, then for the union or for OR, I can just add their probabilities. We can just add their probabilities. But what happens if they can occur together as well? Then it will be wrong. Okay. So what we do is, if you go to the Venn diagram, right? If I'm taking the union of A and B, if I just add the probabilities of A and add the probabilities of B, you see this intersection has been added twice, right? So this has been added 2 times mistakenly. So what we needed it once only. You remember when we take the union, we add this intersection only once. If 3 is in both the sets, we do not write 3 2 times. We write 3 1 time only. Okay, common elements will be counted once, not twice. So it means I needed it for 1 time, but unintentionally we added it 2 times. So what we do is we subtract it. We subtract the intersection 1 time. So whenever you are, for any 2 events, if you are taking union or we are taking A or B, we can add the probabilities. But if we just add the probabilities, I have added the intersection twice. So we subtract the intersection once. Okay, one time we subtracted. Now what we did, we added probability of A and we added only this part. Let me erase it. So when we say we added this one A, now I only added the outside part of B because I subtracted the intersection from B. I subtracted this part. So I only added the outside part. So this whole region will be covered if we add A, B and minus A intersection. This is called the additive law of probability. Okay, this is called the additive law of probability. So you can do this example. John is going to graduate from industrial engineering department in a university by the end of the semester. After being interviewed at two companies he likes, he assessed that his probability of getting an offer from company A is 0.8. His probability of getting an offer from company B is 0.6. He believes that the probability that he will get offers from both companies is 0.05. So see what are the given things. This is probability from company A, means you got probability of getting an offer from company A. So we can just write probability of A. A means getting an offer from A. This is 0.8. Okay. He said company from B is 0.6, right? From B is 0.6. So probability of B is 0.6. Pardon my writing because I'm using mouse for the writing. It's very hard to use mouse. Anyway, I hope this is understood. He offers that getting an offer from both the companies is 0.5. So getting offer from both the companies means A and B. A and B is intersection B, right? Either you can write and, or and is for intersection from both the companies, and it, see the probability is little less than that. Of course, getting the offer from both has less probability, right? It cannot have the same probability as A and B. Now he said, what is the probability that he will get the offer from at least one of the companies? At least one of the companies. It means the question is, what is the probability of getting an offer from A or B or both, right? Company A or company B at least means company, one company or both the companies. It's at least A or B or both. So you know that A or B or both is union. We need the probability of union, right? So it means I need the probability of A union B. But we know that for A union B, we can add the outcomes, and if they are mutually exclusive, we will not subtract anything. But we know that they are not mutually exclusive because he can get offer from both the companies, so they can both occur together. It means I will subtract the intersection. This is what they asked. So this was an application of additive law. Now you can replace the values here. You can replace 0.8 here, you can replace 0.6 here, and you can replace 0.5 here. So what will be the answer? 0.8 plus 0.6 is 1.4, minus 5 is 0.9. So probability is higher from getting offer from at least one. Of course, from at least one it has to be higher than they're separate or both. Okay, so this is the answer. So this is the application of law of probability. So we will study more laws in coming lectures. Okay, so this lecture I'm stopping here. Go through this lecture again, watch the videos couple of times and see if you have any questions. We can discuss it either through WhatsApp groups or online sessions. So until then, bye from me. Stay home, stay safe, have a nice holidays. Eid ul Adha. Salam.